All right, Sue, thank you very much. Another big story we're following at this hour. Housing starts up 6.8% in May. That was a little less than expected, but still the upward trend is in place. Diana Olick live in Washington. Diana?
Well, Tyler, the headline number was positive, as you said, but not as much as the street expected and largely driven by multifamily apartment construction. This as supplies of single-family existing homes are still incredibly low. You have to break down the numbers to see it. Multifamily starts rose 25% month to month in May and are up 69% from a year ago. Single-family, basically flat, up just 0.3% month to month and up about 16% from a year ago. Permits were healthier. Single-family rising to the highest level since 2008, while multifamily did take a little breather. The good news is that we need more housing, so construction jobs should be plentiful in the near future at least. The builders, though, they're blaming the lackluster single-family starts on, quote, unusually wet weather in May. But really, it's a lack of land, labor, and materials, and a conscious effort on the part of some of the big builders to slow production in order to take advantage of rising prices. Back to you.
All right, Diana, stay with us and let's talk more about this. Jade Mills is Coldwell Banker's #1 ranked real estate agent worldwide, specializing in luxury properties in and around Los Angeles. She's with us, as well as Al Goldstein, CEO of Panga Properties, a REIT portfolio with over 8,000 distressed apartments serving the lower middle income market in Chicago, Baltimore, and Indianapolis. And also with us is Harvard professor Neil Ferguson, Time magazine naming him one of the most influential people in the world. So obviously a great panel here. Let me start with you, if I could, Mr. Goldstein. Tell me about the state of the market that you serve. You know, we hear a lot about the middle market, but you go into some of the less desirable areas and you really try and rejuvenate the entire neighborhood.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so Pangea Properties was originally started in 2009 to invest in distressed apartments in lower middle income neighborhoods. And you know, I think the real estate market has gotten very strong over the years. The rental market is strong up and down the chain. Core multifamily apartments are incredibly strong, driven by low yields, as you mentioned. But also in our markets, we're seeing a reawakening of investor demand as well as strong rents.
And Jade, weigh in on how your markets are faring. You're in one of the most expensive markets in the country, certainly, and one that a lot of people say is looking quite overheated.
Well, we're booming. We don't have enough inventory, and we have people that are willing to buy. I would say there are multiple offers. If something comes on the market that is reasonably priced, we have multiple offers. We are up 9%. Overall, we're up 3.7%, over $5 million, and we would be way over that if we had inventory. The flippers and all the people who redo houses and sell them are back in the market. Of course, those take between 6 months and a year to redo. So inventory will be better in another 6 months to a year, but right now we are very short on inventory.
Neil, as you travel around the world, I know you see a lot of different fluctuations in a lot of different economies, but housing is key to the U.S. economic recovery along with jobs. How does it look to you?
You know, when I come home from my travels, I see it in my own street. A developer bought the property opposite us. He's completely overhauling the original house and building a new one right next to it. It's kind of noisy. Guess it sends me back on my travels again. The inflection point happened, though. I can tell you exactly when it happened. It happened last month when I remortgaged and fixed. And from that moment on, you've seen the tightening begin. And I think this is going to be a very interesting challenge for this housing recovery. If we get further indications from the Fed tomorrow that there's tightening coming, that's already begun to affect mortgage rates. And if there's one thing that could cool things down, it's going to be a sense that the party is over in terms of quantitative easing.
Yeah, Diana, weigh in on that, because you've made those very points that there may be a cooling off, but as rates rise, it also may get people off the couch and into contracts.
Yeah, that's a very short-term phenomenon, and I'd be interested to hear from Neil what he thinks about the fact that so much of the housing market right now, especially in those formerly distressed markets and out in California, is all cash. We got a report recently that showed that people are not only paying all cash for homes, but those who are using a mortgage are putting much more skin in the game, much larger down payments in order to get these lower rates. And they're saying that they don't expect to see any big change if you see rising mortgage rates even up to a full percentage point, because so much of this market is cash. I'm curious to see what he thinks about that.
You know, that's a really interesting point, because this is partly to do with somewhat tighter lending standards, but it's also part of the caution that we all feel post the crisis. And finally, what we're seeing here, I think, is the extent to which monetary policy under Ben Bernanke has essentially been favorable to the wealthy. And if you are making a lot of money on your stock portfolio, then you do have the cash to go out and buy that second home that you fancied on the Californian coast. I think the story is distinctly tougher at the other end of the income distribution, and that's, I think, what we should focus on, because that affects a whole lot more people.
And Al, that actually affects you. You know, obviously you've done very well. Your REIT has done extremely well. It's returning a very good percentage to investors. But what has you a little nervous or worried at all about the trajectory of the housing market?
Yeah, well, I think the market's gotten very competitive, and cap rate compression, really driven by low interest rates, makes it challenging for investors like us to find value. And so it's interesting to see what happens if rates start to tick up, and will that put a floor underneath where cap rates have gone, and maybe that makes it more attractive for investors like us to keep investing. It's really hard to predict.
It sure is. That's why we put the panel together. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. And Neil, we'll have more with you in just a couple of minutes. Ty, up to you.
And so we move from housing to the CNBC